In the previous video, I discussed climate change in 2030 and the impacts it would have on our world, and one thing emerged clear. Unless we take persistent action, climate change threatens the end of human civilization. While most people share this opinion, a debate usually rises. Do we need systemic change from the side of the government and large companies, or do we need change on an individual level? But unfortunately, the fact is that we don't have time anymore for these debates. If we need to limit global warming to anything remotely safe, we need all the action we can get, structural and individual. As students, there isn't much we can do for immediate policy change, but we hold the power of individual change. Many say that one person changing their diet isn't going to alter global temperatures and that it's the oil companies and billion-dollar brands that need to make the first move. While I don't intend to deflect the blame from them, I make another argument. Local determines the global. Throughout history, all large social changes and movements began from a few individuals who realized that they deserve better. If we individuals change our lives in small ways, we cumulatively can impact the society and our environment. Look at the bigger picture and you will realize that these big companies are producing items that we create a demand for. By refusing their products, we can influence companies to shift to sustainable alternatives of production. Businesses run because they have consumers to buy their products. To stay in business, they have no option but to meet the changing demands of consumers. When we change our demands, businesses can transform. This is the argument of micro-sustainability, the small-scale changes that affect the environment in large ways. Looking at the climate crisis from a macro level can be overwhelming and make one feel insignificant and helpless. But micro-level sustainability allows us to stop making excuses and tackle it in a practical way. And I agree, in the beginning, changing your lifestyle may seem overwhelming, but the best thing you can do is take it one step at a time. In this video, I will guide you through a few practical steps through which you can make your life less ecologically impactful. Build one habit at a time, incorporate simple changes, and together we can change the way our world works. So let's get started with consumerism, one of the root causes of the climate crisis, and what you can do about it. Consumerism is a social and economic order that encourages the acquisition of goods and services in ever-increasing amounts. In short, it's a mindset and lifestyle of always acquiring more, beyond just what one needs. It arose as a result of mass production after the industrialization, which allowed more to be produced for less and made things that were once expensive luxuries available to the poor. Unfortunately, there's a hitch. This seemingly beneficial system has a very heavy cost, which the environment pays for. Unfettered consumption causes pollutant emissions, deforestation for land use, and strips the earth of its natural resources, from water to minerals and fuels. Additionally, a large amount of all goods produced end up in landfills or are burned. At present, we are consuming 50% more than environmentally sustainable. The real problem with consumerism is that the price of the product does not reflect this real environmental cost, allowing consumers to purchase them without second thought. These products have even shorter useful lives than ever, forcing people to dispose of them and purchase more, perpetuating the vicious cycle. Domestic consumption habits are responsible for 60 to 80% of all impacts on the planet. If we start considering the true cost behind the items we buy and choose to reduce how much we buy, we can drastically reduce our environmental footprint. A practical way to buy less is by embracing minimalism, which in a sense is the idea that less is more. The key principle of minimalism, as said by Vivienne Westwood, is to buy less, choose well, and make it last. This isn't the solution to climate change and won't reverse glacial loss, but can change what and why consumers buy, influencing the market system and economic system to one that is more sustainable. So, how do you shift to a more minimal way of living? The most important thing is to buy less and accumulate less goods. To do this, when shopping, don't go in with a vague idea of what you think you want. Know exactly what you need and don't stray away from it. Don't shop when you are in a rush, as it can lead to buying things impulsively. To stop doing so, see whether you need an item after 24 hours of first seeing it. This will let you consider the true effort that went into it and debate about whether it really is worth it. Clearly question yourself if you'll use the product enough to make justice of the heavy cost it is likely to have. More often than not, the products widely available today have lives so short that they don't allow the user to do that. If there is something you do need, consider borrowing it, making it yourself, or finding it used. If you do buy it new, try to buy from a small business person or local craft person rather than a large corporation. This puts an end to the exhaustive, wasteful, and highly unsustainable make, use, throw linear economy model and helps you shift you from a more consumerist way of living. Now, let's move ahead with the material, which is the embodiment of consumer greed, plastic. If you would like to know why the plastic industry is carbon intensive, visit the previous video. So this knowledge on the plastic predicament has fueled the now popular anti-plastic movement. Today, plastic's presence in our life is ubiquitous. It is infiltrating our food system and choking our oceans and goes unnoticed in innumerable products, from tea bags and chewing gum to paper cups and confetti. But is it even possible to reverse and put a stop to the damage it causes? And is it worth the effort? Plastic became such a rage in the late 20th century because of its versatility and how incredibly cheap it was. It has become such a behemoth that to challenge it would be to challenge the very economic and social structure of today and the consumerist mindset that runs our world. Understanding the enormity of the plastic problem is important, but it isn't enough. What is needed for holistic change is that we as consumers need to do all in our power to reduce plastic, and this starts with the most obvious solution: avoiding single use. Single-use plastics are those that we use once and throw away. Plastic bags, soda bottles, food packaging. The plastic in your furniture or in your phone may be harder to refuse, but cutting off single use is not much of an hassle. All it takes is one will and a few reusable alternatives. And no, recycling is not an alternative. While recycling is a decent option for small portions of our waste, it isn't the solution to the plastic pandemic. Neither is it an excuse to continue buying and wasting. Plastic degrades as it is recycled and can never be remade into plastic of the same quality. For instance, a plastic bottle can be recycled into clothing fibers and then into plastic insulation, but that's it. This doesn't solve the problem of plastic waste, but rather puts it off for later. Paper alternatives are no solution either. Customers seem to be placated as companies swap out their plastic bags and straws with paper ones. However, the idea that paper is better than plastic is a mere misconception. The fact is that although paper is derived from natural sources, it isn't better than plastic. For comparison, paper bags consume 2.2 times more energy, 4.7 times more water, and emit 3.1 times more greenhouse gases than plastic bags. Paper weighs much more than single-use plastic, making municipal waste harder to manage, ultimately causing a several-fold increase in greenhouse gas emissions. So, what is the solution to this problem? How do we as consumers choose between paper or plastic? The answer is neither. Shift to reusables. Fold a large cloth bag and keep it with you at all times. Carry your own steel water bottle, buy a reusable coffee mug, and substitute plastic toiletries with bamboo alternatives. While reusable products may be more expensive, the long-term benefits are much higher, and every time you refuse single-use plastic, you are avoiding adding one more thing to the waste stream. So stay cautious of what you use and keep in mind whatever you have at the moment, make the most of its use and do justice to its production, because a cloth bag is no better than plastic if only used once. Now, to the last segment of this video, planet-friendly traveling. The carbon footprint of global tourism is 8% of all global emissions, for obvious reasons. Emissions from travel, hotels, shopping, and more. So to minimize their ecological footprint, should one cancel all their vacations, stop traveling, and stay at home all year? Of course not. What we need to do is become more conscious travelers and be more aware of our vacationing practices. A possible recourse is ecotourism, which is environmentally responsible travel to natural areas meant for those who are serious about exploring the world in a way that doesn't harm the environment. Ecotourism emphasizes conservation, education, traveler responsibility, and active community participation, and is a way to explore our world without stressing its resources. But ecotourism is not your only option. Possibly the easiest way to reduce your carbon footprint is to use your resources more judiciously. At hotels, choose to take shorter showers, save your electricity, and don't wastefully binge on plastic packaged food. Choose local hotel groups and restaurants rather than international groups that deprive locals of resources and unsustainably manage their hotels. While choosing your bookings, look for reviews about the sustainability measures, but beware of greenwashing. Secondly, if you are traveling to a place that has good public mass transit facilities, take advantage of it. If you are flying, try to fly economy, as the amount of carbon emissions per seat is reduced and the first class is much more resource intensive. Lastly, choose where you go wisely. Places around the world like Bali, Venice, and Shimla in India have been stripped of their resources and natural beauty due to unchecked tourism. So next vacation, offer places that haven't been exploited by human greed. And you can vacation with the confidence that the only footprint you're leaving behind is that of your own 2 feet. Now that brings us to the end of this video. In my next video, I will talk about how to reduce the ecological footprint of your diet and fashion habits. So be sure to check that out. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something new.